What's up, guys? In this video, I wanted to share with you my thoughts on criminality in our current times. For many different reasons, some people at some points in their lives find themselves in opposition of the law. They find themselves in circumstances where they are knowingly committing criminal activity. And this goes back for as long as humans have existed, and there has been some type of structure and regulation and rules that were applied. There have been people who have been breaking those rules. I speak from a position of experience in this case because for the majority of my life, I was one of those rule and law breakers. I had no concern for the law. I only cared for what made sense for me in my own mind, and I was able to justify many actions that were illegal, highly illegal, through my own thought process. So again, I had no regard for it, but that's not the topic of this video. The criminal sense that I think of as far as the change in modern times versus times prior is mostly going to be focused on technology. So in the past, let's go back 100 years, for example. There were bank robbers and there were cops and robbers, and for the most part, they were playing on a level field as far as what was available to them in technology, what was available to them as far as chances and odds of being successful on whatever side they were on. The robbers had a good chance, 50-50, and the cops had a good chance of apprehending. Maybe the cops had a little bit of a better advantage because they outnumbered and they were strategic in that sense. But nevertheless, the criminals had a good shot. It was a reasonable enough risk where if you found yourself in a time in your life where things are just all messed up and you have nothing to hope for, you have nothing to look forward for, you've suffered emotional damage and for whatever it is, and you make a decision to commit a criminal act that could benefit you greatly in the long run, or even just for shits and giggles, for whatever the fuck reason you want to do it. You get all fucked up and act crazy one night and decide to do some criminal shit. You had a chance, a reasonable chance, of getting away with it. Beyond that reasonable chance, if you did get caught, typically you were able to go into a prison setting for a couple of years and come back out, even for the most serious of crimes, with the exception of murder. So most people back then, even bank robbers, bank robbers were serving 5 to 10 years on average. And so now I'm going to go ahead and speak about our current times and how those two examples by themselves make things very, very different for the modern criminal. So with regard to the technology and with regard to the odds of success in your endeavor, the odds are so highly favored now for law enforcement that there almost exists zero possibility of prolonged success for the criminal. What I mean by prolonged is, yeah, you can do some dirt and get away with it, but the longer you continue that criminal activity, the less likely you are to go without arrest. You're going to get busted. And just to give you an idea of, again, how drastically things have changed, using that example from before, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, you had a police force. You had a police force that was responsible for a certain area of acreage, let's say, or vicinity of township. And that police force was pretty much all there was. That was it. So if someone didn't report a crime, if a police officer didn't visually witness a crime, it was real tough to catch anyone. As long as you kept your mouth shut, you can do stuff by yourself and not tell anyone. The fewer people that you told, the better chance you had of getting away. Whereas now, even if you do something on your own and no one else in the world knows, there's a very, very high likelihood that you're going to get caught on camera in some way, in some place. Hey, let me call you back. And so the odds of you getting caught on camera by themselves make it so unlikely that you can be successful. There are literally cameras everywhere. In addition to the cameras, technology also comes into play when it comes to what individual citizens are capable of now contributing as evidence against you. Specifically, everyone has their own little video camera on them. Every single person, for the most part, has a cell phone. That cell phone, whether it's random videotaping or intentional, also picks up a lot of unintended activity, including criminal activity. So again, now you have the police cameras, and you have the state surveillance cameras, and you have the citizens all armed with their own cameras. The combination of both tend to make it very difficult to not be caught on film in some way. That's the one aspect. Another aspect of the technology is the wiretap ability. The wiretap ability and the NSA's ability to basically pull metadata and retain gigantic amounts of information where they can then retroactively go back and sift through all of that, all of your emails, any communication that you may have made, phone conversations, text messages, anything. Social media is a huge factor also in the differences in the times, in the sense that people are so stupid that even fucking criminals are on social media and putting pictures of themselves and not even thinking that the fuck are you doing? You're a fucking criminal. And here you are putting pictures of yourself on Facebook and Instagram and shit. Come on. But a lot of people aren't aware that the government devotes huge resources to being present on those social media sites. They sift through information and look, and also engage people and try to entrap people and get them involved in some kind of conspiracy to agree to commit crime. So they're all over this thing. They are all over it. And talking about the second point of comparison with regard to when you get caught. All right, so as I mentioned before, there were times where you got caught, you did your crime, you go away, you come home, you move on. That's really not the case anymore for a couple reasons. First is that when you do get convicted of a crime now, your criminal history is attached to you and follows you forever. And with easy use of technology, anyone is able to see what you did forever and hold it against you. And they will. They can and will use this against you forever with regard to employment and other opportunities. So you're at a huge disadvantage of ever being able to come out of the criminal life once you get convicted. But about the prison length and the sentences, back then you committed a bank robbery, for example. Your main charge may have been first or second degree bank robbery. It was a federal crime. That crime came with certain sentencing parameters, 10 to 20 years as a maximum, for example. Whereas today, if you commit that same bank robbery, you're not going to just walk away with that one federal charge, but you're going to walk away with multiple charges. You're going to get charged with the threatening aspect. You're going to get charged with the weapon. You're going to get charged with the bank robbery, and you're going to get charged with multiple other things. Oftentimes, conspiracy to have committed all those acts. So they hit you with so many more charges now. And they've increased the penalty for each of those charges, including mandatory sentencing laws, where you're now facing, 60, 70 years for that same criminal act of bank robbery that you would have faced maybe 10 back then. So again, times have changed a lot. And the last point that I'm going to discuss is that the mindset of the average criminal with regard to how they carry themselves, how they act, and what they do when they're caught has completely turned around. Completely. Even in my own lifetime, I've seen it change so much where in my time, when I was in the street, to rat on somebody, to become a snitch, to inform on someone was the absolute fucking rock bottom. I couldn't even comprehend. I faced life in prison. Life in prison. And at no time did I think, I'm going to fucking bury all these other people that I have all this information on that I could easily put out there and walk myself out of the prison. I didn't think that. I'm not built like that because I understood I'm a fucking man. And when I took the risk, I did so as a man, and I did so knowingly, aware of the possible consequence. It's my burden. I have to bear that burden now. Today, the majority, the far majority, feel differently. They do not think like that. They do not adhere to that type logic or self-discipline or honor code. Instead, they all fucking rat. They all tell on each other. And don't get me wrong, there were always rats. There were always snitches. But for the most part, because as a general, people looked so down on it, on the criminal side of things. There was a huge threat, a huge risk you took in ratting. People will kill you for it. And for that reason, they would typically only do so if they were facing an unbelievable punishment. Life in prison, 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, something that they could justify risking their lives and that of their family to get out of. Whereas today, people rat for nothing. People rat for fucking facing 6 months in county jail, 90 days in the fucking county. They're going to rat. They rat for anything. And the state and the nation's government has encouraged that and taken advantage and utilized that mental shift from strength and from viewing things in one way to weakness and viewing them in another to their benefit. They have used it and they have made it so now it is common practice. It's accepted. It's accepted. And it's mind-boggling to me. I don't know how, people could fucking even think like that, but I see it all the time. The majority of people who are convicted in a courtroom setting these days have somebody who's usually a co-defendant rat on them. They end up testifying against them. There are deals made where one party gets a lighter sentence and the other one gets buried. And so for the combination of all these things that I've touched on, the point of the video is stay the fuck out of crime. Stay the fuck out of it. It's not worth it anymore. It's really, really not. Not to say that it was ever worth it, but there were people who were just fucked up in life where they can make sense of it. These days, it's not worth it. I went down for big, big shit with big numbers involved and huge, huge criminal activity at a much higher level than that of most. And I remember telling people in the fucking jails and the prisons all the time, it doesn't matter the fucking level that I was at. For $30 million, I would not put myself in a position to face life in prison. Not for any number. Never again. And so I'm just telling you that if I could tell you that at a high level, it's so not worth it. Imagine at a low level, people doing little petty bullshit for no fucking reason. At least I was doing it for money because I needed money. I needed resources, and that's why I was doing shit. And I was very careful about what I did and didn't do. But to get in trouble over some little dumb shit, trust me, guys, when I tell you, it is not worth it. Getting involved in the system and getting caught up in that thing is a fucking never-ending cycle. It's a revolving door that continues. You're in and you're out. You're in and you're out. It's not that simple that you go into prison, you come out. You have parole, you have fucking probation, you have all these terms, and they want to put you back in. Plus the fact that I mentioned earlier, you can't get a job anywhere. It's a setup. It's a trap for you to continue to fail. And you will do so. Only a very small minority of people who enter into that life can make a successful exit. So I hope you guys take something from this video. Stay the fuck out of crime. Do something good with yourselves. And I'll speak to you next time.